Hi, friends. I'm Becca Werwell, author of the Road Trip Rescue series of faith filled contemporary adventures for kids ages 8 to 12. And I'm here with you today to celebrate the launch of book 2 in the Road Trip Rescue series, Road Trip Return. So, the day that I post this is September 4th, 2024, launch day for Road Trip Return. And if you are watching it on launch day or within that first month of the launch, so before October 4th, 2024, make sure you stick around till the end to learn how you can win a special edition copy of Road Trip Return. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about this story. I'm going to answer some of the most popular reader questions I've gotten about the new book. I'll read an excerpt from chapter 2 so you can get a little taste of Daniel's story. And then, like I mentioned, there is information about how you can enter to win a special edition signed and numbered hardback of the book. So let's go ahead and dive in to Road Trip Return. What is this book about? Well, first of all, the Road Trip Rescue series, like I mentioned before, they're faith-filled contemporary adventures for kids ages 8 to 12, and they involve road trips, as the title would tell you. There are themes of family and friendship and faith and forgiveness. Book 1 is about a girl who goes on a road trip to find her lost dog. That girl's name is Kimmy. And in book 1, Kimmy meets a new friend. His name is Daniel. Daniel comes into book 1 about halfway through. So book 1 is Kimmy's story, and book 2 is Daniel's story. So in book 2, big changes are coming. His brother is getting married in a week, and Daniel's not sure he likes the way that's going to change his family, the way that's going to change his life. So he's nervous. He's dealing with a lot of feelings that a lot of us have experienced, right? We have big changes coming. We don't know how to think about it. We're scared. Well, then a week before the wedding, his brother's fiance disappears, and Daniel is left with even more questions. And he ends up going on an international adventure, the last place in the world he ever wanted to go, Guatemala. And he ends up deciding that he thinks he needs to stop his brother from making the biggest mistake of his life. So that's the premise of Road Trip Return. While I wrote the story with the adventure in mind and Daniel's adventure to Guatemala in mind, first of all, there are also some themes I hope the reader gets. I hope that readers who read this see that they are loved, that they belong, that God's plans for their lives are even better than their own plans, and they can trust Him with their future. So, before we get into the popular reader questions, I wanted to give a little preview of the special edition signed and numbered hardback that I'll be giving away. So this is the special edition copy of Road Trip Return. It has a dust jacket, and on the back of the dust jacket, there's a quote from the book. And underneath the dust jacket, this is always my favorite thing to show because I love some good foil stamping. Underneath the dust jacket, there is in silver foil stamping an airplane on the front. And there's a quote on the back, "You are loved and you belong." So, like I just talked about, that is one of the themes from the book. And then the copy is numbered, number 28 of 50. And I love to have beautiful books on my shelf. So I'm excited to give this signed and numbered copy away. There are only 50 of these copies in print available. So it's a pretty exclusive edition that I'm excited for one of you to have. And in order to get this copy, so you have to be watching within the first month of the launch before October 4th. And you'll want to listen to the end because I'll be sharing a code word and how you can enter to win this copy. Shipping is only to the continental US, and entrants must be 18 or older. So if you're a kid watching this video, make sure you ask your grown-up if they can enter on your behalf. Okay, now time to get into some popular reader questions about Road Trip Return. The first question: how does it feel to send book 2 into the world? Wow, this is a hard question to even wrap my mind around. Well, sending book 1 into the world was scary because it was the first time that I was sending a story beyond my immediate circle, like beyond my own family, my critique partners, my beta readers. Those were all pretty small and contained circles that I got to choose who read the book. And now it was available for anyone to read. So it was scary to put myself out there in this way. With book 2, there's a different kind of pressure because now people have read and enjoyed book 1 and they have certain expectations and hopes for book 2. And book 2 is different from book 1. Book 1 is Kimmy's story, book 2 is Daniel's story. Book one, the road trip is from Pennsylvania to New York, so a pretty short trip, relatively speaking. And Daniel's journey is from Pennsylvania all the way to Guatemala. So they don't just drive there, they take a plane, and the adventure itself is different. Book one is the search for a missing dog. Book two doesn't have as much of the dog content, though there is still some, and it's the search for a missing fiance, or in Daniel's case, a quest to maybe make sure she's not found at all. Book one has a smaller cast for most of the book, with Kimmy taking the journey mainly with her Aunt Skylar. Book two, there are a lot more people involved because it's Daniel, it's his older brother Mateo, it's Kimmy, it's her parents. So they all go together. So it's a larger travel cast. So there are a lot of differences between book one and book two, but I'm hoping that readers still give book two a chance and that they really enjoy it. The next question: what inspired this story? Well, when I first started writing Road Trip Rescue, book one in the series, I didn't know it would be a series. I had this idea in mind of a story of a girl who went on a road trip to find her lost dog, but I didn't know there were more books in store. But after I wrote that book, I had beta readers and other readers who read the story, and they loved Daniel, Kimmy's friend who she meets, and they wanted to hear more about Daniel. And so I started thinking on that. If Daniel had a story, what would it be? And of course, everyone has a story, right? So I started to dive more into his character, more into what he wants and what his goals are and what could really disrupt his life. And it ended up taking me on this new adventure I had never seen coming. So that is how the initial story came to be. The next question kind of goes into that. Why did you choose Guatemala as the destination? This is an international adventure, so Daniel could have gone anywhere. Why Guatemala? Well, in book one, it's established that Daniel and his brother Mateo, their family is from Guatemala. So that was the first reason that it made sense that this would be connected to their story, that they would end up having to go back to Guatemala, and that that would hold significance for Daniel. And then the other reason, and probably the reason even that that was worked into book one, is that I've spent a lot of time in Guatemala. I had studied there for a semester in college. I've been back to visit several times since. And so the country holds a really special place in my heart. And I always thought it would be really fun to write a story set in Guatemala. I just never knew that it would be the Road Trip Rescue series. But I'm happy it is. And I love the way that it is worked through this book. It made it extra fun to write because I got to go back through my old journals. I got to look at my old photos, talk to friends that I had met there so they could help me work the Guatemala details into the story. So there was a lot of reminiscing and research that was really fun to do. The next question, and I've already answered this previously, but are Kimmy and other characters from book one still in the story? The answer is yes. Kimmy is still in the story. Kimmy's parents are still in the story. Aunt Skylar's in this story. Daniel's brother Mateo's in this story. So a lot of the characters from book one do carry on into book two. So if you loved those characters, if you want to see how they're continuing to grow and develop, and if you want to see how they've changed from book one, then this is a great story to read. The next question: why does Daniel make some bad choices in this book? So, if you've been listening to this video, you've probably heard from the premise that Daniel's taking some matters into his own hands. He thinks that he knows what's best for Mateo, and he thinks it's not what Mateo has in mind. And so he ends up trying to sabotage the search for Mateo's fiance. And those, as a reader, we can tell are not good choices, right? Whether you're a kid reading this or a parent, you're thinking, well, he's not making a very good decision here. So, why do I let Daniel make those mistakes? Well, there are a couple reasons. First, none of us are perfect, and it's important to see that in our characters that we read about. We all make mistakes. That's real life. That makes us connect to characters and relate to them. And we can see that Daniel isn't making the decision we might make ourselves, but we can kind of look in to see, well, why is he deciding that? It can help grow in empathy as we put ourselves in Daniel's shoes and try to see where he's coming from. And it can spark some really great conversations with family. So I have some discussion questions in the back about some of the decisions Daniel makes. We also get to see the consequences for his actions. So, because he makes those choices, what happens as a result? Because that's real too, right? In real life, when we make decisions that aren't the best, we have to face the consequences of those decisions. And then finally, I love being able to show God's redemption in this story, the way God works his transforming power in Daniel's heart and with the other characters. And we are able to see that redemption in a much more significant way by seeing the depths from which Daniel comes and the way that he transforms. So it shows that transformation more significantly when we can see where he's coming from. And then the last question I have here, is there going to be another road trip rescue book? The answer is yes. Book 3 is currently in the works. As I record this, it's with my copy editor. So hopefully, maybe a Kickstarter in January and a release in the spring is what I'm aiming for at this point. Book 3 will be called Road Trip Redemption, and it will be from a third character's perspective. So book 1 was Kimmy's story, book 2 is Daniel's story, and book 3 will be Jada's story. And you might remember that name from reading book 1 if you've read book 1. All right, now I would like to give you a little preview of Daniel's adventure. And so we'll be reading from chapter 2. At this point in the story, Daniel has been at Kimmy's house and he's been waiting for his brother Mateo to pick him up. Mateo finally shows up and drops the news that Skylar, his fiance, is gone. So that is where chapter 2 picks up. Road Trip Return, chapter 2. Gone fishing. Gone could mean a lot of things. Gone fishing, gone on vacation, dead. My stomach plummeted with sudden guilt. What if something bad had happened to Skylar? Mrs. B dropped the bowl back onto the floor with another metallic clink. Kimmy froze at the bottom of the stairs. Junior wagged his tail. I sat on the floor in a puddle of vanilla frosting. Everyone remained silent, like they'd frozen in a snowstorm. Gone where? I asked. Frosting dripped along my cheeks. Junior tried to eat it off my face again. This time I shoved him away. Mateo shook his head. I stopped by her house. She wasn't there, and she's not answering her phone. Mrs. B picked up the bowl. She grabbed a roll of paper towels, passed a few to me, and scrubbed the frosting off the floor in quick swiping motions. Sky goes days at a time without answering her phone. Her voice sounded shaky. Maybe she's running errands. Mateo pulled a small piece of notebook paper from his back pocket. She left a note. So, not dead. That was good. The ball of guilt in my stomach eased. I rubbed the frosting from my face with the paper towel. What does it say? I stood to see the note in Mateo's hand, but he had folded it in half. Can we read it? Mateo opened his mouth to respond, then shuddered. I can't lose her again. He passed me the note, hand trembling. Kimmy shuffled closer. Mrs. B joined us, leaving Junior to lick frosting from the floor. Her face had turned almost as white as Mateo's. I held the note in front of me so we could read it together. My dearest Mateo and others, there's something I need to take care of. Don't worry and don't come after me. Love, Sky. No instructions on where to find her. No information about why she left. No mention of the wedding, her wedding, the one that was 1 week away. A bad taste filled my mouth, like whoopie pies made with cow pies instead of chocolate. I'd been pretty young when Mateo and Skylar first dated, so I didn't remember much. But she had run off on him before. My head throbbed. My hands clenched into fists. How could she do this to Mateo again, and a week before their wedding? Mateo turned from the note and asked Kimmy's mom, She'll be back for the wedding, right? She has to be back for the wedding. Mrs. B rubbed her throat. I don't know what to say, Mateo. You know my sister. Her track record isn't promising, Kimmy muttered. My brother let out a snort cry sound, like a pig that had held its breath for too long. I need a minute. He walked into the bathroom, the one practically flooded from Junior's attempted bath, and shut the door behind him. I wanted to follow, but what could I say? Maybe this was a good thing for both of us. But he wouldn't want to hear that. My hand tapped my leg. This was proof Mateo shouldn't get married. Life worked better with just us. I'd never disappear on him. Well, I did have a history of wandering off, but I never meant to. It hadn't happened since the summer. I definitely never thought about it enough to leave a note beforehand. Mrs. B used her foot to nudge Junior away from the remaining frosting. Why don't you two take the dog outside while I get this cleaned up? Okay, Kimmy said. I nodded, glad for a chance to talk to Kimmy about this. Skylar was her aunt, but Kimmy would see the truth. For Skylar to run off, she must not have wanted to be part of our family. After Kimmy dried Junior's hair with a blow dryer so it wouldn't freeze in the cold, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and we ambled outside. An icy breeze swirled snowflakes around us. They flicked against my face and prickled my skin. Junior sprinted through the yard, snatching flurries in his mouth as he ran. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Kimmy asked. I scratched my head. I'm not a mind reader, but I hope so. We have a mystery on our hands, the case of the disappearing aunt. We have to find her and bring her home before the wedding. No way she'll make it back in time on her own. I released a puff of air. My breath floated and then vanished. Search for Skylar? That was the opposite of what I wanted to do. She shouldn't have left. Maybe it'll be fun to search for her, Kimmy said, almost like she hadn't heard me. Her cheeks were rosy from the cold. A new quest. Over the summer, we had embarked on a quest to find a missing dog. But a quest to find Mateo's missing fiancé felt wrong. I didn't want to let Skylar hurt Mateo anymore. If she didn't show up for the wedding, he'd see the truth. He didn't need her. We didn't need her. What's wrong? Why do you look so worried? Kimmy frowned. You don't think she could be in trouble, do you? No, she left a note. I stared at Junior. He was snacking on snow again. That dog would eat all day if he could. Kimmy chewed on a strand of her hair. She'd vowed to break that habit before 7th grade, but she hadn't succeeded. I guess that's true, but if this was a movie, she probably would be in trouble. The note is so vague. Junior dipped his chin into the snow and came up with a Santa beard. Kimmy giggled. I wanted to laugh, but Skylar had made me too angry. This was just like her, messing up our house and our lives, taking away the time Mateo and I used to spend together, hurting me, and even worse, hurting my brother. Kimmy put her hand on my shoulder. It's okay, Daniel. I grabbed a handful of snow and packed it into a ball. They can't get married if she doesn't come to the wedding. She'll be there. She has to be. We'll make sure of it. Kimmy and I agreed about a lot of things. I thought we'd agree about this, but we didn't. Junior leapt to lick my face and nearly pushed me over. I stumbled back, dropping my snowball. His nails caught the pocket of my cargo pants. I unhooked his nails and held his front paws. Junior, get down. Kimmy sighed. The problem is, it'll be tough to find her without any clues. But I think we can do it. We make a good team. The front door flung open before I could respond. Mateo trudged out with his coat under his arm. Come on, Daniel. Let's go home. And that is chapter 2 of Road Trip Return, book 2 in the Road Trip Rescue series. So after that chapter, they do some investigating, find out where Skylar went and why, or at least guessing why she would have went. And from there, they launch on their adventure to Guatemala. So the book is available as you are watching this. Anywhere books are sold online, pretty much, you can find it, or on my website, you can buy signed copies. So I'd love for you to check out Daniel's story. As promised, I'm going to share some information about how you can win a special edition signed and numbered hardback of Road Trip Return if you are watching this video within the first month of the launch, so before October 4th, 2024. Again, entrants must be from the continental US and must be 18 or older to win. So if you are a kid, ask your grown-up if they can enter for you. Step 1 to enter. Make sure you're signed up for my email list if you're not already. You can sign up for that at beccawurwell.com/newsletter. Step 2, send me an email. My email address is becca@beccawurwell.com. And when you sign up for my email list, you'll get an email from me so you can even respond right to that email. But send me an email by Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, by the end of the day, so 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, with the special code word. So just email me a special code word and I'll share that word in a moment. The winner will be notified on Friday, October 4th. So, Road Trip Return's 1 month birthday, I will let the winner know that they will be getting a signed copy. I'll get your address and we'll go from there. So, again, all you need to do, make sure you're signed up for my email list and then send me an email with the code word and you'll be entered to win. Are you ready for that code word? The code word, it's actually 2 words, is chicken bus. Chicken bus. And if you read book 2, if you read Road Trip Return, you'll learn the significance of what a chicken bus is. Or maybe if you're familiar with Guatemala, you might already know what a chicken bus is. Happy reading, and I hope you enjoy reading Daniel's story in Road Trip Return.